G'day everyone, I'm Smokescreen and welcome back to another video, and welcome back to a daily race video. We haven't had one of these for a while, but we found ourselves with a nice set of daily races in between the gap in the two GT World Series Exhibition Seasons that are starting off 2023, the second of which is announced actually starting next week. So we're in this daily race C here, where we get a pretty good start off the start of this race, starting from the back, of course, and then not even 15 seconds into the video, we've immediately witnessed a cold-blooded murder, Porsche on Porsche, so a bit of friendly fire going on there, and that person gets a 5-second penalty, which of course, that used to be quite a humorous in-joke in the old GT sports scene, but now the penalties are pretty good. Let's see if the Audi gets a penalty for that particular manoeuvre. He doesn't get a penalty in the form of a time penalty, he gets a penalty in the form of me fighting back and giving him return serve on the immediate corner after. Send it down the inside of the Porsche with the 5-second penalty, and don't ram up the backside of this Mercedes AMG. On the exit of turn 6 here, a Toyota Supra is sent spinning as well, and that brings us up into the top 10. So let's see if we can keep going with this climb up the field here in this daily race C here today. Oh, a couple of cars with 5-second penalties going ham at the bottom hairpin. So a good bit of variety actually. That's a Lexus RCF and a Ford Mustang as we head up the outside of the Mercedes GT that backs out at Michael Schumacher S here, so that's pretty good. But this daily race here, Nurburgring GP in Group 3, this is a little bit of a throwback one for me, because this is kind of the first, or this was the combination that was used in one of the very early daily races that I started participating seriously in back in GT Sport. I remember distinctly me trying to get a 155 on the hard tyres using the Audi R8 on the controller, because I really wanted to do it because Super GT could do it. And yeah, it's just good memories back when I was really enjoying my Gran Turismo racing. That's still the case today, just probably to a lesser extent because of, you know, adult life and such. But nonetheless, we find ourselves up into 7th here as the two people with their 5-second penalties serve said penalties on the back straight here, and then we're going to be looking to keep climbing up the field here as we've started on these medium tyres, which is the softer of the two compounds that are required for use in this race here today. And it's a little bit unusual to start on the softer tyres starting at the back of the field, which we were doing on purpose, by the way. We hadn't set a qualifying time because I wanted to see if we can get some good video-worthy action from starting at the back here as these trio of cars are engaged in a bit of a war here. But yes, the medium tyre, traditionally the softer, in this race here today, you'd use if you were starting from the front, but we wanted to try and get some overtakes. I was actually watching Key 25 perform this race on one of his live streams just before, or just a couple of days prior to me doing the races myself, and what he found is that starting from the back on the softer tyre, you'd get everyone else around you on the harder tyre, but then they'd pit early in the race and give you clean air, which you could use to great effect on the medium tyres, of course. We get past one of the three cars, the Jaguar F-Type, but the little chicane, you barely should call it a chicane, to be fair, turn 5 and 6. But that just leaves us with these two Porsche 911s. Oh, I don't know if we ended up going into the back of Seaside there, so I think we did. Send him deep up into turn 10. So we are just going to have to concede the position, let him resettle back in, and I'm going to confirm that with a bit of a bump draft here today, which is nice and good. And now I consider this fair game for a move now, as well as switching to try and distract him, but we end up sending it up the inside at the chicane, the slow variant of the chicane that's available here at Nurburgring GP here today, as the Porsche ends up then spinning out immediately after. So that's us up into 5th. And while we've been doing that battle, as we're just trying to find exactly where we can get on the throttle in the final corner, that other Porsche up ahead of us that was part of the trio that we just infiltrated, they've managed to drive away. But let's see if we can try and catch up to them. We have through the Mercedes arena, so that's the first 4 corners here at this track, and he gets a rather poor exit out of here, so we've got to look up the inside, but he kind of just loses control and sends us onto the grass, sends us spinning. He gets into the barrier, and you might have just caught a glimpse of him with a penalty for hitting the barrier. A little bit disappointing, because that's all of that progress. You can see 1, 2, 3, 4, that's like 6 cars or something that we've all overtaken at the start of this race, now completely undone. A bit frustrating, so we're going to have to redo all of the moves here, and we've got to kick it off with this bit of a sloppy move here, moving in the braking zone, send it up the inside. The Mustang didn't see us and turned in. So yeah, a little bit of a sloppy move there. A few people in the pits as well, so we would gain some positions, but I just wasn't comfortable with that particular move there. So I let off the throttle, let them go back through. I don't want to penalise myself too much, so I am going to try and stick quite close to these pair here. So the Porsche just retakes the position there. He's actually got a half-second penalty. Perhaps he cut the chicane, because of course we're still able to cut the chicane GT Sport style, even with the revised track limits in GT7. But let's see if we can get past. We get this lovely slow switcheroo. That's the successor to the old switcheroo, the slow switcheroo. Up the inside at turn number 3. Let's see if we can complete this move at turn 4. He just keeps his nose in there quite late, but we are able to get that position back up in the end. So let's see if we can get this move on the Ford Mustang now in a much cleaner fashion than we did in the first time around. So he gets a bit of a poor exit out of turn number 11, gives us the inside for turn number 12, and then 13 and 14 is the chicane coming up. We have got the outside here, and the Mustang defends brilliantly there. He gets a bit of a poor exit thanks to his narrow entry, but we just run up into his quarter panel there, and we're not quite able to get that position done. He runs it narrow into the final turn, which I know means he's going to get a poor exit, but then we don't get the best of exits ourselves, still trying to find where we can get on the throttle in one foul swoop, but he gets a poor run into turn 1, which means we're going to look up the inside of turn number 2 like we did on the Porsche earlier in the video. The Mustang manages to fight it a little bit better this time, as we have to be we are forced to run quite narrow into turn 3, but we've managed to get that position done. We do run quite wide out of this corner here because it's in use for another layout. You actually don't get a penalty for running wide out of there, and that's us up into 4th. 2 cars ahead of us, pit in later, one on hard tyres and one on medium, so that person on the hards has done a very long stint on the hard tyre there, way longer than you would. I wonder if they forgot they were on hards and decided to go long. But that's us up into 2nd, and when it comes to the end of lap 7, which is the lap we were deciding initially to pit in off the medium tyres onto the hard tyre, we come out of said pit stop in 7th, up behind Andromeda, up behind the Andromeda Galaxy. Lovely. But you can see the hard tyres have quite a bit less grip compared to the medium tyres there, as we almost spin out at turn 1. Now this final stint here, it's only a short stint, but it's the hard tyre, so you don't have a lot of pace. We caught up to one car that had 6 seconds worth of penalties and served said penalty, which left us about a second off the Andromeda Galaxy, but at the end of the day, we weren't able to quite catch up to them and overtake them to get into that 6th position, the coveted 6th position, I guess you could say. But that moves us on to this race, once again starting from the back with no qualifying time set. Tez has joined us on his alternate account, not Tezar. So actually no, that's not Tezar. So yeah, it's definitely not Tezar. We send it down into turn 1, not my best turn 1s, I'll be honest, just running into the side of the green Porsche and the Nissan GTR, and it looks like that car that was just kind of falling off the back of the pack behind us, it looks like I was at fault for that, but I wasn't. They were kind of next to me when I made the contact with the Porsche, and they kind of ran wide themselves. So look, not my best turn 1, I'll put my hands up and say that, but at the end of the day, it wasn't actually that bad. I didn't immediately cause any cars to go off track. A couple of people did spin out. We pounce up the inside of this Toyota Supra. I think that was the Supra that spun out in the previous race. And now we're looking to get this move up on the Andromeda Galaxy again, and we slot neatly into this gap in between them and the Nissan GTR up ahead, so making pretty good progress here. And I was trying to look for a move up into turn 10 here, but I thought the Nissan's going to go for it on the Porsche, and I don't want to get caught in that, and I'd rather just take advantage of any contact that would happen between them. And that's exactly what happened, and I was looking pretty good to get up into 6th, but I just run into the side of the Nissan as I tried to turn into that corner before the straight, and then I get shuffled half onto the gravel. I lose crucial momentum down the back straight. I'm thankfully helped by a bump draft by the Toyota Supra, I think. And then we're side by side with the Andromeda Galaxy. I've got the inside for the chicane this time, but I get a slight bit of oversteer, and the Galaxy is able to get back through, which in a nice, neat little manoeuvre there, to be fair. And that's us back down into 9th. He gets a poor exit out onto this main straight here. We switch to the inside on the exit as well. and we're side by side racing down towards turn 1 for this 8th position now. I don't want to fall off the back of these cars up ahead, and it's actually crucial for my strategy that I make some progress at the start of this race. We got the inside for turn 1 though, we managed to complete that move beautifully, and that's us confirmed up into 8th position. But eyes forward now on Seaside Seesaw, looking down the inside at turn 5. He manages to hang it around the outside though, and that gap kind of closes off, but then I launch it down the inside at turn 6 here, because I kind of switch across and swoop across the back of the Porsche 911 that was ahead of me. We managed to get that position up into 7th. Nice little manoeuvre there. He's pretty close here. Does he send it for the move at the Dunlop hairpin? He doesn't, which just leaves us in hot pursuit of the Nissan GTR, punctuated by another Porsche 911 off the track. So this move that was going to be for 6th is now for 5th. I catch up to the Nissan quite convincingly, and he just had his right indicator on there telling me to go down the inside. He's not going to defend that move, which is nice and friendly of Throw Some Tail, so thanks very much, Nissan driver. That leaves us into 5th. We catch up to Greenie, who's about half a second ahead of us, and goes in on the end of lap 3. He's going to be on the hard tyre. We'll see that in 2 seconds. There we go, the hard tyre. And then we can kind of compare our strategy, which happens on the end of lap 7 here. But check out this pit entry. Do I just cut the pit lines there on the entry, just taking it a bit too wide off the exit of the hairpin there. And let's see what happens on the exit. Oh yeah, 3-second penalty, and there's Greenie that goes by. He got a nice undercut on me, to be fair to him. So that's what I was trying, that's the point I was trying to get to. Let's see how my strategy works out versus Greenie, who was half a second ahead of me when he went into the pits. He's now about 3 seconds ahead of me, so he's made pretty good progress on his medium tyre stint. Our medium tyre stint wasn't so bad ourselves, a few 55s in there, but that penalty from cutting the pit entry just kind of ruined the progress in that race. Tez does, however, donate the position back to me, which is nice of him. His reasoning was because I was on my main account. He didn't want me to lose as much DR as I would have if Tez finished ahead of me. But that's okay. It's very nice of Tez nonetheless. Moves us on to this race. Once again, starting from near the back. I think we did put in a qualifying time for this one, albeit not a very good one. So we are in 10th this time. So let's see where we can go from here. A couple of good races previously, just moving up the field, or we did have that penalty in the previous one, but that's okay. We managed to finish that in 5th at the end of the day. Looked up the inside of this Jaguar heading into turn 2. Wasn't quite going to work. DP Mario goes quite wide, driving his Porsche 911, and he's going to be narrow for turn 4, and I knew that was going to give him a poor exit. So we just sweep across the back of him. Absolutely beautiful, absolutely textbook manoeuvre there. And then we're looking once again back at this Jaguar F-Type. Runs it a bit wide through turn number 5. It's going to give us the outside for turn 6, but let's see if we can get this done. Normally we've been going outside inside for those 2 corners, but we managed to actually get outside inside to work that time. Couple of cars spinning off the track as the Porsche rejoins erratically. Check out the radar as well. We've got a torpedo sending down the inside, and I'm the outside domino. And I managed to get shoved off the track. But look at this.
What the fuck is
a
this game?
4-second penalty. What is this? That right there, that penalty, that one in your screen right there, that's the stupidest penalty I've gotten in GT7 to date. That is the single worst penalty I've ever gotten. It didn't even have a reason underneath. The game couldn't even work out why it was giving it to me. It was just like, oh, penalty, yeah, here we go. We'll give a 4-second to the guy that's already at the back. So that kind of ruined the progress of that race. I did want to show this neat little overtake on this Toyota Supra. Once again, just kind of a bit of a textbook switch back there. And we managed to get a pretty good run out of that corner. But ultimately, that first lap kind of ruined the progress there. And by the time the strategies worked itself out, we only finished that one in 10th. But that was a sign. That was a sign that I was no longer going to be starting in the back. And I'm going to try and put in a good qualifying time. So you can see my previous one there, 55.1. It's actually not bad, to be fair, but people were going a lot faster. I think people were in the 53s, to be honest, so I've got quite a fair way to go. But let's see what we can do in this qualifying lap here. We've only got 2 minutes and 40 seconds till the start of the next race, so we've only really got one shot at this particular qualifying lap here today. So let's see what we can do on the medium tyre, of course, braking just before the 100 metre board into turn 1. One of the slowest and tightest hairpins on the track, of which there are many, but we get through there okay. Turn number 2, I don't really have a reference, but just try and keep it on the curb on the inside. and don't get on the power too early because it kind of drops away towards the exit. Braking just before the end of the green patch on the right hand side for turn number 3, and then nice and patient on the throttle for turn number 4. You can run out beyond this curb a little bit, but not too far because you can get dirty tyres out there. No penalty though. Braking just before the end of the little access road for the alternate Nurburgring layout, and then braking just before the end of the curb on the left for turn number 6. Nice tight to the apex. Maybe not as tight as I could be on that particular time, but it wasn't too bad. And then heading down this little straight towards the bottom hairpin, braking just after the start of the curb on the left-hand side. I do run it maybe a little bit hot into this, and you can see I don't come back for that second apex, which I probably could do. But Michael Schumacher-esque now, just follow the tyre marks on the track, and I think if you get your turn in dead correct, you can take it flat out in this Porsche 911. But I think we had a slight lift on the entry, and then braking just before the 100 metre board, heading into, what's that corner? Turn number 10 there. And then turn number 11, I was struggling here because I didn't really have a reference. I was just kind of turning out of turn 10 and just tipping it into turn number 11 and just hoping I could try and get some definition of a racing line. With a bit more practice I could get that down pat. Obviously flat out through the kink in the back straight, and then just before the 100 metre board into this chicane here, we jump on the brakes. There, just cut the curbs on the inside, but don't always make sure you're touching the red and white curb. And then braking just on the start of a little bit of a dead patch of grass on the outside of the final corner. There's a 54.6, so not bad for kind of one-shot quali. And it was good enough for 5th on this particular grid here today. So let's see what we can do in terms of trying to move our way forwards. Obviously, starting near the front, up near the faster drivers compared to the drivers we found at the back of the grid. We get around the outside of Greenie immediately at turn 1, which promotes us up into 4th position. We've got an Aston Martin Vantage, Aston Martin V12 Vantage, and a Porsche 911 with GTR in the lead, driving the GTR, of course. So I expect GTR to drive away, so GTR's definitely one of those drivers that's just one tier above me. Not normally able to match GTR on my days, so we're definitely in a race for 2nd position here. I'm not quite sure what this Aston Martin's doing. It's a little bit erratic at the start of this race, but let's see if we can just simply get this move done and then eyes forward up towards Wheelsy. I've started on the medium tyres, of course. Looking down the inside at turn number 7, we both run it a bit hot, both myself and the Aston Martin, do we? But we managed to kind of get a bit of a switchback on the exit. We don't quite make as big of a hash of that corner as the Aston Martin did, so they ran very wide and lost a lot of time, which just leaves us with this Porsche 911 up ahead of us to focus on. So let's see if we can set about tracking them down and executing them and overtaking them, of course, and see if we can get this 2nd position. So of course, just trying to stick into the racing line, because that is where you're going to get the lowest lap time, and that's the goal really. You just really want to minimise the mistakes, make sure your lap time is as low as possible, especially so compared to the driver you're trying to track down, and that's how you're going to gain. The chicane here you can gain quite a lot because you can kind of go balls to the wall and just cut that chicane to the maximum effect you possibly can, but of course that comes with an increased risk of a penalty which could ruin the race instantly. Thankfully both of us get through there without a penalty, and that just is going to leave me 4 tenths behind the Porsche, so we're going to get some good slipstream down this main straight. Once again, not quite as strong as it was in GT Sport, so we're not going to gain as much time as we probably would have, but Wheelsy just sends it way too deep into turn 1. It's going to give us a look in on the exit. He gets a better, straighter run out, of course. He did lose a lot of time on the entry. We're going to look for this move here, but Wheelsy's privy to that and he covers it off, so we're not able to get that done. He does run quite wide on the entry to turn number 3. Perhaps that could give him some dirty tyres and a penalty if he's not too careful, but I think he gets away with both of them, actually. So perhaps some lag showing him a little bit further wider than he actually was. But that's okay. We're going to look down the inside at turn number 6, once again doing this pounce manoeuvre. We're not hanging around here, and I think we were just about far enough up the inside at the time. We both hit the corner. There was a tiny bit of contact. I just run a bit defensive to try and break that slipstream and make sure he isn't given the opportunity to return the move at turn number 7, and we managed to get that position up into 2nd, currently 4 seconds behind GTR. Let's make sure we can just extend that gap out with the assistance of the dirty air that's present in this game, and yeah, that gap to Wheelsy is opening up at this particular stage. Let's fast forward to the end of this lap. We're going to do an audio up lap, so sit back, relax, and enjoy the sounds of the Porsche 911 for lap number 3. So a nice smooth lap there, and that's confirmed by the lap time of 55.2. Some of the really, really fast drivers were sneaking into the 54s. I mean, you can see GTR there has got a 54.5. As for us, we were able to put in some pretty consistent 55s, a couple of low 55s, and then the tyre wear kind of started to kick in, and the lap time started to elevate. But by the time we get to the end of lap 8, GTR's in the pits, and I'm going to follow suit. He is 9 seconds up the road now, so there's no chance we're going to be winning this race unless he spins out in quite a spectacular fashion. But we are in a race for second, although we've run kind of the alternate strategy. Everyone else that started around us started on the hard tyres, including Wheelsy. You can see Wheelsy ends up undercutting us here, or just about so. There's Wheelsy around the outside, and then we just get this bit of kicker oversteer again, not quite used to the hard tyres immediately on the exit of the pit stop. And then once again, back behind this V12 Vantage and this Porsche 911. But this time they appear to be engaged in a bit of warfare between one another. Just kind of every single corner, just one runs into the other, and you can see the Porsche escorts the Aston Martin off the track. That gap closes as I was trying to sort of get into the battle myself. Aston Martin sends down the inside of the Porsche 911, who is not having a single bit of it, and ends up shoving them really wide into turn 6. And we're just going to take advantage of that one, and I don't want the Aston Martin coming back towards us. I'm going to donate the slipstream to Tez and just resettle back in behind Wheelsy. So we now find ourselves in a bit of a unique position here, because Wheelsy, like I mentioned previously, started this race on the hard tyre. So what that means is that they're now on the medium tyre, and of which they've done a better job too, because they've come out of the pits ahead of us. So their medium tyre stint was probably low 55s across the board, whereas ours crept up into the 0.7s and then eventually 56 before we did our in-lap. So yeah, Wheelsy's done a better job there, but it does mean he's going to be on old medium tyres. We're only on the medium and the hard tyre. Something I find in this game is that the medium tyre appears to be a little bit closer in pace to the hard tyre than it is to the soft tyre. So I believe that as the medium tyre gets really, really late into its life cycle, it does sort of begin to equalise with a new hard tyre, and that's what I'm finding here. Wheelsy's a little bit quicker at the start of this lap, to be fair, and you can see that gap's opened up to just under a second. We were practically right behind him at one point in that lap, but he's now opened that gap up to about a second. Tez is in the same boat as well. He's on worn out medium tyres and just beginning this final lap here, and I believe Tez was doing a 9-1 split as well. So Tez is on his 9th lap on the medium tyre, which I didn't feel I could even attempt and have any hope of trying to match a hard tyre lap, so I decided to pit in on the end of lap 8. But this final lap now is just going to be about defending from Tez and tracking down Wheelsy. It's a bit of a unique position to find yourself in. Normally you only want to be defending from one car or trying to attack one car. You don't want to try and be doing both. But as it stands right now, because Tez is a lot closer to me than I am to Wheelsy, it's much more important to me to actually defend from Tez, because he could go for a move at any opportunity here, especially if we get a bad exit out of this corner here. I think we get a pretty good exit there with that gap behind just opening up ever so slightly, up towards this really good overtaking opportunity at the bottom of the hill, the Dunlop corner at turn number 7 for Nurburgring GP here today. That gap to Wheelsy is still just under a second, so we've equalised on pace here, which just goes to show that maybe if maybe we were doing 11 laps in this race here, I'd probably have a bit of a better opportunity here, but we've only got a couple of corners left to go, as that gap to Tez has just opened up to about half a second. He's not within move range unless I make a mistake, which I almost kind of do on turn 11 there. I get a bit of an average exit, but it's not too bad. But really, we're now way too far back from Wheelsy into this essentially last real good overtaking opportunity of the lap into the chicane here. So as long as he gets through here smoothly without a penalty, which he definitely does, he gets through there without a penalty, leaving a lot of margin on the table in terms of the curbs here. And then we tip it into the final corner. Wheelsy gets a nice straight exit. There's nothing we can do about that. Tez, in the same boat, is not got enough grip to try and get me on my new hard tyres. But ultimately we finished that race in 3rd on the podium, so pretty good result there, to be honest, starting in 5th and working our way up to 3rd on the podium. Nice, clean race with some pretty low lap times in there. I would like, with maybe a bit more practice, I could get a 54 in the race, and perhaps I'd really like to get the 53 in qualifying, but ultimately, pretty decent drive there, pretty decent video in the end. So if you did enjoy it, do hit the like button and do subscribe if you'd like to see more videos and streams from me. Do leave a comment as well, as questions, comments and constructive criticism, as always, are very much appreciated. That's going to be the end of this one today, and that means that is it from me. So once again, I do thank you very much for watching. See you later.